Alright, welcome to a new series on my channel where I'll be playing slower rapid time control games, typically 15-minute games or longer, while live commentating my moves and my thought process, as well as analyzing the games afterwards, both on my own and with the help of an engine. I should also note that the main focus of this isn't necessarily educational, but rather documentative, where I'll be tracking my progress along the way and seeing where my thought process can be improved in certain areas, if that makes any sense. So let's queue up for a game here. Should be ready to go. This is going to be on my secondary account. I'll link it in the description if you guys need it. So let's see here. Okay, we have our first game. See, the layout here is fine. Okay. So I'm playing a 2300 as black. This is 15 minutes with a 10-second increment. Okay, so he plays e4 here. Now my main response has always been e5, but I have dabbled in many other openings before. And just recently I've been I've been practicing my Sicilian lines a little bit. So let's continue with that and see what line white plays here. Okay, knight f3, he is signaling that he's leaving open the option for an open Sicilian, so let's continue with knight c6 here, developing a piece. The main move here, of course, is d4, but he plays the Rossolimo with bishop b5. This is a solid move as well. Let's see how he handles the e6 Rossolimo. I've been playing this for quite some time now. Okay, so he does the early capture on c6, which is a fine line, but I just prefer these positions as black slightly, but it's still a lot of chess to be played. So my idea with knight e7 is I want to bring the knight to g6. It's the best square in this structure. It does not belong on f6 where it'll be met with e5 at some point. So when my knight goes to g6, it'll be stable, watching over e5. If he ever pushes e5 early, I can sort of break that open with f6, the f6 break. So he does go for that. Okay. Yeah, so there are normally two main plans for white, either playing for this early e5 or playing for a queenside fianchetto with b3, bishop b2, because the pawn b3 will also serve as a nice sort of blockader of the c pawn, so the c pawn can never move forward. Against an early e5, when white is castled, I believe f6 is playable, d6 is also playable, but that kind of shatters my queenside structure like this, so I think I'm going to start with, I could also start with bishop e7. I don't really see a point to that, at least not right away. So let's start with f6. If he takes, I take with the pawn, of course. I want to keep controlling this e5 square. And later I'll play for bishop e7 and maybe later d5 to grab more space in the center. But f6 is very typical in these lines. It's not always the best move, but it is a very practical and a very popular move in these positions. So let's go there. Might continue with rook b8, maybe after I castle. I'm going to just get developed right away. Bishop e7 and castles. Another idea is to put your bishop on a6. It's often a useful square. But other times I just want to leave it on c8 because eventually if I do move my d pawn, this e pawn might become weak on e6 here. So let's see how he responds to this early f6 break. So white should absolutely not take. This will give me the whole center here. It'll give me like 1, 2, 3, 4 pawns controlling the center. So it goes bishop e7, which is fine. Could go queen c7, but then rook e1 will just keep everything held together. Uh, hmm. Could go rook b8 actually because he cannot really target it with my knight on g6. It's covering that f4 square. So rook b8 is possible. Bishop e7 is also possible. Um, Probably I'll start with bishop e7. I think it's more correct. Just prioritizing our kingside development here. But rook b8 was also playable, I'm pretty sure. Okay. I think the main thing about this type of position for white is that it's really hard for him to really do anything, at least in the center of the board right now, because he doesn't really want to open up the center this way, because that just gives me a huge center. He also cannot really go for this early d4 move, because by pawn, it just gets rid of my double pawn, and that's definitely not what he wants. And if he goes knight c3, well, he can never go like c3 d4 or anything of the sort, so... Alright, so maybe he's looking to transfer his knight to e4. I guess that makes some sense, but I'm still not afraid. I can still castle. Rook b8 is also possible. He could also be trying to go for this bishop e3, knight a4 idea, which is common to in many Rossolimo lines to go after the pawn. But somehow that does not worry me all that much right now. So I can castle. I don't really see a better move right now. I think I'm just gonna castle. I don't see why not. And again, if he ever takes here, I always take with the G pawn. It looks kind of sketchy opening up my king like that, but I really need that control over e5, as well as g5 for that matter. At the right moment, I might go for d5 and accept these double pawns here, since I don't really have a more productive plan than that. Because it's hard for, I don't really want to resolve this tension right now, because that'll be, I think that'll fall into his hands. I'm thinking of queen c7 or queen a5, and then bishop e2. Could also go rook f7, preemptively getting the rook on the 7th rank, in case this capture does happen. But rook b8 honestly looks like the most flexible move. Let's just go rook b8. I have ideas of swinging the rook over to b4 as well, if I ever need it. Just the useful square in general. It's not going to be the greatest piece after he simply plays b3, but it's still something. I'm hesitant to move this bishop right now, because if I move the bishop out, I can never move my d pawn, because this move will just win a pawn. The e6 pawn will fall. So I'm sort of okay. So he does take. Interesting. Now I think what I definitely don't want to do is take here. Like, this is always an option. I don't think it's terrible here. But just like allowing knight e4 to come with tempo is just not great. I want to keep this pawn guarded, so let's take with the pawn. And actually, this makes me really happy, because I can now push for d5, get a bigger share of the center, stop the knight from coming to e4. I probably won't play d5 until he plays knight e4, or at least not yet. Okay, so he does go for that. Now I can go rook f7, but I was also thinking of rook e8. Rook e8 might be interesting too, with the idea of going bishop f8 and just trading. But I think rook f7 is more flexible, because here I can take the queen and get my queen out. But yeah, as I said, d5 is on the horizon here. Okay, it goes for that. And I can go for d5. I don't really see why not. Also, actually, I just realized e5 is a common move in these structures, just to completely limit, the movement of his dark square bishop. Putting a pawn on e5 in this f6 e5 structure is just really appealing to me, because it also stops him from maybe opening up the center. That might be an idea for him. And still, if he plays knight e4, I see nothing wrong with just playing d5. Like, I can play e5, d5, get a huge center, and yeah, e5. You can't even think about sacking because my knight is on g6 here. The one thing I am slightly concerned about is e5, h4 is something I should always watch out for. Against knight on g6, you always have to be mindful of this h4 idea. And right now I don't control the h4 square. So e5, h4. Let's say I go bishop d6. It looks like a weird move. No, that doesn't make sense either. Let's go d5. So e5, h4, d5, h5. Could just go knight f8 there. Trying to think if there's a reason for me to start with d5 first. Actually, if I go d5, that might allow d4 for real, because when he takes, he's hitting everything. So I think I do have to go e5. Let's go e5 here, and later go for d5. I think stopping d4 was a priority. So you can see that after the structure transformed like this, when g takes f6 and he went here, everything is forcing. He still does not have time to go for d4 because of his hanging b pawn. So now that he defends it, I go e5 and stop d4. So yeah, h4 as expected. Definitely not a surprise. I think bishop f8 is very logical. I don't need to go for d5 right now. I can always play that later. So my idea is that if he trades, I take with the knight. Or actually, I can take with the queen still. Interesting. So he takes here. The idea of taking with the knight is later I can go for knight to e6 and then target these dark squares. But okay, he goes for that instead, which is definitely interesting. Now I should probably take care not to allow knight e4 because, well, maybe it's still not an issue. Another interesting thought I had was just playing d6 with the idea of going f5 later. I'm trying to think, like d5, here, here. I guess he still can't really sack. That's a little bit too much. Honestly, I think d5 is fine. Let's just go d5. Not afraid of the sack. Like, sure, my rook's hanging in the end, but I don't see an attack for him. I just slide my king over. f7 rook is useful on the 7th rank. Okay, so let's go knight to here. Maybe knight h4 was his idea. I might have missed this move, but yeah, that would be a good move, I think, just stopping any bishop g4 ideas. But still, it's not too much to worry about. Okay, so he goes there. I can go here just to trade if I really want to. Because if he goes this check, I have this move. So let's see here. I can go rook f7 right now. Oh, sorry, rook g7. This is a legal move. Queen d7 actually looks attractive too, just trading the queens. Because I think all endgames with this huge center here are not going to be good for him. So yeah, I'm hesitant about this because like it always gives this check. It's annoying. Actually, now what about rook b4? Hold on a sec. This looks like a really funny move, honestly. Just swinging the rook over. I don't see any meaningful discoveries. I'm pretty sure that like knight e4 does not work. Because I just take it and I take two pieces. And like this move doesn't work either. I would not... well, I could even just take here. That looks possible. Yeah, rook b4 is a really funny move, but I think it's a very, very nice one. Because I don't see where that knight's going. If he goes here, I'm like ready to chop that off. And continue with knight f5 into d4. Let's go rook b4. It may not be the best move, but it is a creative one, and I'm sort of banking on that. Yeah, so like knight e4, I just don't think it works. I think that's a very good two pieces for me. Takes with the queen, I always have queen to d5, just trading queens. Of course, the endgames are much better for black. Yeah, rook b4. Let's see how he deals with that move. I think rook b4 is strong, but we'll see. What's funny actually is g3, I don't even need a sack right away. I can also go here and win a pawn, but sacking also just looks completely justified there. Yeah, with the knight coming to d4 or capturing on h4 is just way too much. Although I can't actually take on h4 on that line because queen g4. Well, maybe I can. Check. We'll see. It's still complicated, but I think the center is just really good for black. So the time usage here is pretty standard. Both sides have about 10 minutes each, 9-10 minutes. If the knight moves back, I have ideas of rook g4 and rook g7 also. Just ganging up on that g2 pawn. I actually don't even need to move my rook until it's attacked. Let's say knight back or a3. I can just keep the rook there and go bishop to g4. He goes for g3. All right, so this is the big decision here. How should I go about this? I think sacking on h4 is completely fine. I just got to see how to proceed after that. So I see he's gonna go like he's gonna hide his king somewhere. Maybe it's not as clear cut as I thought. So something I definitely should not do is take and then go rook g7. That just gives him ample time to move his king out of the way and trade rooks on the g file. And then I'm just an exchange down. Right now bishop g4, picking up that pawn looks attractive. Trying to see if there's any more options there. Yeah, like I don't see any threats with this knight or anything. Like he has no good discoveries. Bishop g4 just wins a pawn. Yeah, like takes. Originally I thought knight f5. You know what I actually think the problem is after knight f5? I think the problem is that he just has time to move his king out of the way. And then like I'm the one getting checked on the g file now, while his king is pretty safe in the corner. So maybe there's no need to sacrifice, at least not yet. Keep that option open though. So let's go bishop to Yeah, I don't see any move for him. Appears just to win a pawn, so let's just do it. It's a very good pawn too, because I don't want his pawn to come to h6 and deprive me of this g7 square. So yeah, yeah, I don't see any problem with bishop g4. My pieces here are a little bit awkward. My rook on f7, knight, and bishop are a little bit awkward. My queen's also misplaced right now. But I still think that after I win the pawn, I'm able to untangle somehow. It's interesting to see how he deals with it, though. Okay, let's grab this. I still don't see any good discoveries. I just take that. It's funny, I even had the intermezzo. Like if he does go for that for some reason, he takes. I can even take on f3 there, and then take back. Okay, so now I mean this is just begging to be played. Like okay, I think I now have an idea. Takes, and then I go e4. The idea of exploiting this pin. If he takes twice, he loses the bishop in the end. The bishop is undefended. He cannot ever take with the f-pawn, of course. So... And my knight's still coming to f5 and then to d4 and rook g7. And now also he sort of disconnected his rooks with knight back to e1. So I'm not really as afraid of the g file opening up on my king. So yeah, I think I'm just going to go for this. And just blast through with e4. Yeah, everything's still defended. My knight's defended. Okay, so knight to f5 is possible. The idea of just taking here, but maybe just queen to g2 is good enough there. Yeah, I think knight f5 and e4 both look very tempting. But I think e4 is just very direct. One thing you always have to be watchful of is any bishop moves, and I don't see any bishop moves that could cause any trouble whatsoever. Yeah, let's just blast through with e4. And basically I'm going to take this pawn on f3, and his light squares are going to be completely shattered around his king. This also opens up a diagonal potentially on the dark square, so let's see here. Yeah, I think knight e1 was a big mistake. Like, even if somehow white survives here, which I doubt, it's just an ugly move to make. I don't see where the knight's really heading. Again, disconnects his rooks. Loses control over e4. So he's going to try targeting something, but... I mean, this just looks devastating. He probably has to try something like bishop f4, looking to duck, or bishop e3. It's not very pleasant to play. This also gives me the d5 square, by the way, for my knight. So if the bishop ever comes to one of these two squares, I'll be able to throw a punch at it. But as of right now, I think I'm going to just take on f3 with the bishop next. Yeah, his pieces are just all in the back rank. My pieces are going to line up. I have just a very strong bishop pair. Yeah, this looks pretty bad for white. Okay, he does go there. Fair enough. Okay, bishop takes, of course. Don't need to think too much. I don't want to open up his e file. I want to get my bishop active. Okay, so now I can give a check. I can also throw this move in. Knight f5 is... yeah. Knight g6 also is legal. This maybe isn't as easy as I once thought. Hold on. I think starting with the check is fine because I think he has to go to f1. And well, I must have something there. I'm not going to dwell too much on this. Let's go rook g7 check. And then decide what we want to do from there. Knight d5 also is going to be an idea. So he has to go to f1, okay? And now the goal is now just to check him on that square. But yeah, I think this is just like mating soon. Queen c8 is possible. Queen d7 is also possible. I think queen c8 is gonna be my move because I'm threatening both this and this, and I can't stop both. I don't really need to move my knight out of the way, as far as I can tell. Like here, yeah, I just don't see how he stops. He has to go here, and then knight d5 is just devastating. Let's go queen c8. Yeah, again, I don't think my moves are optimal. Like the engine will yell at me after the game saying that I missed much better moves, but this just looks practical. Yeah, you just can't stop both threats. Rook g2 is always an option, but there's no need to play that right away. Yeah, this bishop is just ruling the day here. He has no way to sacrifice for it except his queen. Okay, so that's okay. Actually, that move I sort of missed, but not really. Let's see here. I think starting with this check is fine. And then knight d5. Starting with this check. He has this move. Yeah, I think, no, I'm going to go here. I'm going to protect the bishop so that he can't fully sack for it. The pawn will still be a huge wedge in the enemy camp. Actually, you know what? Knight f5 might be even better because I have rook d7 available to cut off the king. Very complicated position. I could go here and just claim the queen, right? Yeah, actually, I don't even need to move my knight. I can just go here. What am I thinking? I just don't see where the queen moves. Knight f5 is also tempting. Let's see, rook g2, I don't even see what he plays. If he tries to sack, I just take back the pawn. And if his queen moves literally anywhere, I have just checkmate. So let's come in here. I think rook g2 is most precise. And again, like he has no checks on this diagonal. Rook and knight are still bad. He can't sack. I might have missed the move actually. Okay, so he just resigns. Okay, I missed one move, but it's not going to help him. He has rook takes f3, and then queen to f1, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. No, actually, that's just silly. I just move my knight and still give it some check with my queen. But yeah, maybe he could have held on with rook takes f3 and then queen f1, but maybe not. Probably not. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so rook g2 was up there. Queen h1 is also up there. Yeah, okay. So I did end up crashing through. Let's quickly run over the game by ourselves. Okay, so see that after castles, knight g6 here. Yeah, it's known that the most critical try against this line is knight g5, but personally I've like never faced that. And the idea of knight g5 is to play a quick f4, I believe. Like get the knight off this f3 square because it is misplaced right now. In this structure, white does not want to go for e5, but rather f2 to f4 to get his kingside majority rolling and maybe push for f5 later. So he wants to get his knight out of the way. If I kick it away, he goes knight h3 and then goes f4 on the next move. And I do have to be careful there because it is like this f-pawn rush is definitely the most critical way to meet this knight e7, knight g6 setup. But yeah, he ended up going for e5, which I just didn't like after f6. I think, let's just see this. Yeah, bishop e7 is completely fine. Castles, rook b8, g takes here, rook f7. So it looks like he is sort of bothering me here, but again, I just have too many pawns in the center. Like if you flip over the board and look at it from white's perspective, white just does not have any ideas. He has no pawn breaks. His pieces are all bad. His pieces are being attacked. His stuff is being attacked actually right now, and just everything, all of his pieces are just wholly misplaced. And I just have a long-term plan of grabbing the whole center as I did in the game, and just continuing that way with my two bishops. So yeah, I think e5 was an important inclusion to stop this d4 move. You can imagine that if I had played d5, maybe this move could be annoying because after he takes, if I do decide to take, then suddenly my c pawn and this pawn are both attacked, and there's no way to defend them both because this move will just hang a pawn, and then my whole structure collapses on top of losing a pawn. But yeah, e5 was directed against this, which is very common, especially now that I have this little pawn chain here. So he goes h4, which I expected during the game. I thought that it's the most logical try to meet this this plan. But I was prepared, so I went bishop f8. I tried to get rid of my bad bishop, so he declines it. And then I take the whole center, stopping the knight from coming to e4, because that could be a problem. If I do allow knight e4, then after d5, he can maybe go knight g3 and cause some trouble with, let's say, knight h5, or a later knight f5 if possible. So I get my knight out of the way. I went here, just control f5 later, and then rook b4 I thought was a really nice move, just hitting the undefended knight, and he has no good discoveries as I pointed out during the game. He went g3. Now here I thought sacking was fine, but there's no need to rush with that right away. I went bishop g4, grabbed a pawn, and then this I think is a huge blunder because after this at e4 I think I start just to crash through. Yeah, I think this is also hopeless. Like I don't see how he survives that position after I take the bishop. So he goes there. I take on f3 or g7, and queen c8 was a nice touch, just double attack. Yeah, like if he were to allow, let's say if he plays a random move that prevents, or let's say queen h3 was not a move, then this move would be, let's say here, this move would be crushing because he'd have to go here, and then just rook g2 wins the game on the spot. So yeah, I think I handled this attack pretty well. Rook g2, and yeah, he's just completely busted. So let's see what the computer thinks about this game. Alright. Okay, so a few hiccups there, but wow, that is surprisingly cleaner than I thought. Alright, Let's just see here. Right, d3 97. This is all fine, of course. Yeah, this actually, as I pointed out during the game, f6 is not necessarily the most critical, but it is also, the database suggests that it's perfectly fine. f6 here, g7. Rook to b8 is obviously fine. E takes, G takes is very thematic. Here, rook f7. Yeah, rook e8, as I evaluate during the game, was a little. Yeah, this rook is misplaced here. I want to keep my rook on the 7th rank to later shift it over, as I did during the game, to g7. So rook f7 was nice, and then I went e5. So d5, d4. Aha, so this isn't. So I just go bishop d7 apparently. And if he takes, I take with the bishop, and this is also fine, which also makes sense because I still play for e5. You can see that it is, the engine lines are saying to play e5 like on the next move. So it's fine to allow d4. It's just playing e5 right now. There's no harm in that. Okay, so I went bishop to f8, which is logical. d5 now, 97. Okay, now rook b4 is inaccurate. It was saying to play rook b4 a move sooner. Like right here, rook b4. Or maybe not. Okay, so it wants me to go knight f5, which is very interesting. I did not think that this is a very natural move to make. Just trading the knights like that. I guess it makes some sense, but I still see very little wrong with rook b4. Ah, so he has f4. Aha, so I missed this idea. That's why. Let's see. What if I go knight f5, takes, and then f4? Then you have c4. If he takes, you have this check just opening up this diagonal. Wow, interesting stuff. So yeah, f4 I actually completely missed. The f4 is a very nice try here. And it looks like I only have 2 moves to really maintain this thing. So he's never threatening to take right now, but maybe later if he kicks my rook, then he is. So bishop h6. Let's say, well, rook to f1. That is strange. a3. Rook takes f4. Okay, that makes sense. So he goes rook f1 to protect f4. That makes sense. Then I should go rook g7, which is natural. He still can't really. Can he take? Takes an f6. Then rook takes h4. Huh. Takes here. Queen d6 is just mating, or queen c7. Wow, that's an insane engine line. Okay. Yeah, I probably would not have seen all that. Rook f1, rook g7, a3. Bishop g4 is nice. Okay, so it looks like I do have enough play here. But okay, I made one blunder apparently this game. I should have played queen d7 instead, which I saw. I saw queen d7 looking to go to h3 or g4. Huh. Let's see, queen e7. So he plays knight e1 anyway. Okay, then I take. And now the idea is that I have queen h3. Aha. So that's the idea of queen d7, to sack. Okay, he blunders here, allowing rook takes h4. And of course, retreating the rook would be no good. Just allows him to get his pieces back in the game. Yeah, g4 I saw during the game, like, there's a funny line here actually. Like, I can technically take here and sack a bunch of material for the queen, but I think this is completely incorrect. But yeah, g4 I was actually sort of worried about, because after this, I have to retreat my bishop again, and he's holding here. But black's obviously a little bit better, at least. Rook takes h4 though, and it's just over. So knight f5 is definitely, okay, it is definitely the cleanest way. Now that I think more about it, I can hardly see a defense. Let's say queen h3, then I have knight d4. Okay, that's a problem. But what if he just prevents knight d4? What if he just plays c3? Rook g7 check. King f2, knight takes h4. Rook g1. And now, yes, his knight is still in the back rank, and I still have this idea. All right, that makes sense. And I still have knight f3 for that matter. So yeah, I probably should have gone knight f5, but it's still fine. e4 is still up there. Takes an f3 is fine. Rook g7. And yeah, queen c8 is nice too. Queen h3, rook g2, and that's the final move of the game. All right, yeah, that's about it for this game. Yeah, pretty clean overall. A few misjudgments on a good follow-up after the sack, and also missing f4 was kind of bad, but yeah, that's a pretty easy win overall. That's about it for this one.